Oh, thank you, Kate. Now I would invite Stefano Boeri, President of the Triennale, to join us here. Okay, we had an incredible day today. We learned a lot, really a lot of things about the donut and the application. So we can discuss some aspects with Stefano. I prepared just a few questions that I would propose to both of you. Going to your different experience as president of a big cultural institution and also as an architect, and you, Kate, as an economist, an activist, and author. And it's about the need to integrate policies created in different sectors. How important is that different policies can communicate each other? How important is to integrate policies? I think is an experience so real in your activity as an architect. An architect, I have to coordinate many competences, many way of thinking, many subjects that often speak really different languages. And so I know it's a very difficult task to integrate. And also, you know, in your experience, I'm sure you found often this kind of problem to integrate policies. So, at you, Kate.
Yeah, of course we need to integrate policies, right? And our experience at Donut Economics Action Lab is watching why and how local governments pick up these tools and decide to start working with them. And I think one of the major reasons is precisely this. They realize that they have traditionally been boxed into siloed ways of working. We've got education over here and energy here and roads and transport here and social welfare here and health over here, not talking to each other, not doing joined up policymaking. And what we've seen time and time again is that one of the biggest benefits that city policymakers and civil servants say that they're getting from using the tools of the donut is that, of course, it puts it all on the same page. They're all here. It's all here. And all the environmental stuff is here. And also the connection between the local and the global is here. So it invites us to put everything together, to talk across those silo lines, to make policy where it all adds up and we can see the full implications. This acts, as some people call it, a boundary object. It's like people come from their different issues, come to the boundary of it, and they're connected by a shared framework, which then makes sense for them all. So we've seen places adopt it as a compass, as a vision for what they want to pursue, because everything is contained within it. But we've also seen places adopt it as a means of decision making. Some cities, for example, say whenever a large scale infrastructural project is proposed, we will put it through the test of the donut. Is it helping to get people out of the hole in the middle? Is it helping us come back within these planetary boundaries? How could it do it better? So using one tool to assess across different sectors. So it means you start to do policymaking in a really much more joined up way. And of course, that means it's much easier to communicate to the residents of the place because they're not being drawn to look at the energy strategy and the transport strategy and the health strategy and the food strategy. They're connecting and explaining how they move towards this one common goal. So it's one of the main reasons that we've experienced cities picking up and using the tools of donut economics is precisely to get out of the siloed, divided ways of working and to work across sectors, bringing it together under a shared mindset. But I'm very interested to know what Stefano's view of experience of this kind of working is and whether he thinks it will also work in the world of architecture and built environment.
Thank you, Kate. Stefano.
First of all, thank you so much, Kate, for your inspiration and for your capacity to, let's say, transform a translated theory in a series of very, very pragmatical, practical, and useful proposals. So I think it's so important, and it's so rare to have this kind of capacity to, let's say, to make general ideas tools for action. So first of all, thanks. Second, well, for sure, I totally agree. I think that what we basically need in public policies is a kind of holistic view. So it's a capacity to put together different sectors of what normally, for instance, a local municipality does. It's very, very important to do it, and we are experiencing this in Milano, we're experiencing this in Italy, when we try to observe how all what we do in terms of reducing the effects of climate change in our cities is or not related, is or not connected, or what we could do in order to reduce inequalities, social inequalities, basically. And that's a super important and crucial point. So I totally agree, and I think that your framework, not framework, it's an amazing tool to try to observe how the impact of public policies could more or less create, let's say, a balance between these two spheres. Well, we know how much they are interconnected. Just to talk a little bit more about that, if we observe what's happening in the cities, let's say in the context of urban condition all over the planet, we know that cities are producing 75% of CO2 emission. At the same time, we know that 1/3 of city population are by slums, by barracks, by informal settlement. So we can immediately observe how cities are the place where inequalities and global warming are, let's say, creating together what we observe day by day. For sure, it's changed so much if we are in the south or in the north of the world, but basically this interconnection is everywhere extremely important. And the risk to create solutions that are working and succeeding only on one of these two spheres is dramatic. Because we know well, for instance, just to give an example, if we could or should work in order to substitute with forests and trees and plants the surface of parking areas in our cities, and we do it without considering how the public transportation system is capable to reach these areas. For sure, what we are doing is simply to get advantages who is already advantaged and reduce the, let's say, advantage of who is, let's say, not able to access to that quality of life. So I totally agree. I think that this framework could help public policies. This framework should help also private stakeholders. It's not only about a local community. I think it's not only a bottom-up, and it's not only something that should be used by public policies. It's something that could help us to really try to, let's say, improve our capacity to create an holistic public policy.
Thank you. So going to the tool, we are talking of a very big challenge to find a balance within, between environmental policies, social aspects, the social floor, and the environmental ceiling. It's a big challenge. How is important to have tools like the donut that are flexible, adaptable, scalable to different scale, to allow to communicate different scale of problems.
It's key. It's absolutely key. And I think the only reason why, well, one of the main reasons why the concept of the donut has been picked up and put into practice by governments, by communities, by companies, by schools, by health centers, is because it is scalable to, as you say, from, you can do it at the household level. As Stefano was suggesting, you can do it at this household level, but you can take it to the street, the neighborhood, the district, the city, the region, the country. You can also do it at the level of an individual building. So next week, I'm going to Tomelilla, a small town in Sweden, where we are having the gathering of our cities that are currently working on this. And we will be looking at the project they're doing there, building a school for the future and asking, how do we do this utterly aligned with the principles of donut economics? How do we source the materials, think about the transport system, design the curriculum? I mean, the school meals, what the children will wear, everything all the way through. So you can take it right down to the site of an individual project. We can also look at it at the level of a nation, and we can look at it at the level of the world. And it's because it works at many scales that it becomes adaptable. So it's got the flexibility for people in a place to say, shall we do it as a city? Shall we do it as a watershed? Shall we do it as a street? So these have been really important attributes, enabling people to adapt it particularly to their own context. And we're learning back from places. The city of Brussels, actually, in Belgium, did some beautiful work demonstrating the project level, the district level, the city level, and beyond. So showing at multiple levels they can extend a framework. Because the framework doesn't give you answers, right? And I mean, it'd be very weird if it really gave us all the answers. It's a framework for thinking. It enables us to make sure that we're not forgetting about anything, right? So it gives us almost like a checklist of holistic issues we need to think about. It puts them in relation to each other. And then it invites you to draw on the best experience that you know of, to draw on the best possibilities, the blue sky thinking that we can dream of when we take off the constraints of what we think isn't possible and that we dream. And so who you bring into the room and the diversity of who you bring into the room, the experience of who you bring into the room will beautifully shape the possibilities that arise and the answers that you create for yourselves, because this framework doesn't give you answers. It just invites you in a way to ask better questions and come up with your own solutions. And again, that can be from the level of a single building right the way through to the future of a nation. So I get huge joy and pleasure out of seeing the incredibly creative and ambitious ways that different teams of people have picked the framework up and demonstrated to us this is how we can use it usefully in our industry, in our policymaking process. So it's an absolutely key attribute to make it useful.
Thank you, Kate. Stefano.
Well, about scale, a little bit to joke or provocate Kate, but we are, as Kate knows, we are hosting now a large exhibition on inequalities, and there is a part of the exhibition who has been developed by two North American researchers, Beatrice Colomina and Mark Wigley, and it's all about bacteria. No? So apparently, well, why bacteria? This, let's say, quite articulate attempt to study the relevance of bacteria for our daily life. It's so important in an exhibition where the main theme is inequality. But what we have developed is quite strange and quite strong, because they are really demonstrating how the obsession architecture has always had for hygiene, for, let's say, cleaning space, for trying to reduce the number and also the variety of bacteria, was in a certain way a kind of stupid effort or a kind of failure, since what's happened basically is when we, for instance, try to reduce the exchange between interior and exterior space, because we believe that in that way we will reduce the risk of disease, the result is the opposite. So the more we are reducing our capacity to host variety of bacteria in our body, the more we are exposed to disease. So this is simply just maybe a little provocation, but it's also a confirm of how I think the framework that Kate is proposing us could be scaled also at this completely different scale. Another issue is completely different, and that's a question for Kate. I'd love to understand if, for instance, your framework could be used also if we try to use a kind of non-anthropocentric ethic. If we'd love to, let's say, what we are trying to do also in this exhibition, to see how we could improve our cohabitation with other living species in the urban environment. So if at the center of your framework, we could locate not simply the human being, but also other species. Because I'm super interested to understand that. I think that also if we think of how AI could eventually help us to improve our capacity to cohabit with other living species, that means to improve our capacity to give voice to their needs, to give voice to their expectancies. Well, so maybe this scheme, this framework, this model can be not simply scaled, but used as a kind of, let's say, transition to other spheres, to other living species.
I love this question, Stefano, and it's very, very alive in my household at the moment, actually, because this weekend I had a visit from a man called Cesar Rodriguez Garavito. He is the founder of the More Than Human Collective, the Moth Collective, which is bringing together creative and thinking, artistic people from around the world precisely to promote the awareness of and the rights of the more than human. So he and I sat at my kitchen table at the weekend and I asked him this exact question. I said, Cesar, should we be not only specifying humans here, should we bring all living beings into the center of the circle? Now, I thought he would say, of course we should do that. This is so anthropocentric. We should bring all living beings in. He actually said the opposite. And I'll share with you the arguments that he made. He said, first of all, the risk of doing that is that we would diminish the visibility of human deprivation. And since we're in a conversation here about inequalities, and I'm sure there are many people who have dedicated decades of their life to working on human rights, to voice, to the fundamentals, to income, overcoming inequalities. If we make those less visible, I think there's a risk that they would actually be lost, and that this framework would be less attractive to people for whom human inequalities and inequalities between people are a very strong driving factor, a very important motivation for social justice. We would lose that visibility. And then maybe they might say, oh, this has become too ecological. It's no longer useful to me. And I don't want to lose that community. It's where I come from, working on social justice issues as opposed to environmental. So that was his first argument, very pragmatic. Don't lose the human rights community. Don't lose those working on injustice. But he also said, you know, the rest of the living world, they're not just here in this biodiversity loss. They are here threatened by land conversion. They are threatened. They're dependent on us protecting the waterways and the hydrological cycle. They depend on us not using excessive fertilizers, polluting their bodies with chemicals and plastics, not acidifying the ocean, not creating climate breakdown. They're actually in every one of these. So we already have the question before us of how can we more equitably, more ethically respect the rights of all living beings, because their presence is visible in all of these ecological. So Cesar had said, if the social foundation represents human rights, he said the ecological ceiling represents the more than human rights. And to me, this was really interesting. Like I say, I was surprised. I thought he'd say, bring all living beings into the center. This should be not anthropocentric, not even biocentric. It should be ecocentric. But he said the opposite. Keep the humans here, because it does matter about the inequalities between us. And we do recognize the rights of every human being. But already in this tension between the social foundation and the ecological ceiling, it demands that we recognize the rights of the more than human. And it demands that we create this ethic that needs to sit in this green space. So what is the ethic? Is it the rights of rivers, the rights of whales? Are we going to go down the rights of nature route? Are we going to go down the route of recognizing that these are global commons and we have a stewardship responsibility towards the living world. The beautiful work of Robin Wall Kimmerer, I'm not sure if her book is very well known in Italy, The Honorable Harvest. She sets out a beautiful ethic of harvesting from nature. Never take the first, never take the last, never take more than half, only take what you need, use everything you take, ask before taking and respect the answer. Some of these beautiful ethics. So there are many different ways. And for me, it's the ethical project that I most want to see people engaging with every year. I encourage students, whether they're master's students or PhD students, please pick up this project and research what are the possible ethics that sit in this green space between the rights of humans and the rights of the more than human. So your question is bang on topic for me. Cesar's answer was surprising to me. He said, stick with this diagram because it already presents us with all the dilemmas that we face. We don't need to change it. We just need to get into action and figure out what is the ethic that binds them together. I would be interested in your response to that, Stefano, as well, though.
I perfectly understand and I agree. And what I like of your answer is that you are keeping the human being at the center of this scheme, since you want to confirm that the responsibility for, let's say, defending biodiversity, for connecting the life of the different species, should be managed by us. And so I think that the risk is to, when we talk about cohabitation with different species, is to de-responsibilize the role we have, and we will continue to have a dominant species, because we are dominant, and we cannot forget that. So I agree, and I'd love to test how we could use this when we are trying to give voice to other living species without abandoning our role on the pedestal of life.
Thank you, Stefano. You already started to give an answer to my last question. That is about the role of a cultural institution, thinking about that goals, not going beyond the environmental ceilings and not going below the social floor. And the question is exactly what can it is? How can a cultural institution like Triennale or like a university, like school, play a relevant role thinking about that kind of goals? You are already doing.
No, I think the question is crucial. What we do here, what the Triennale has basically always done, is to, well, the name Triennale comes from the fact that from 1928, Triennale was is organizing every 2 or 3 years an international expo where around one unique theme, different knowledges, different disciplines are asked to, let's say, to be gathered and let's say, basically observe from different point of view the same issue. And so our history is that a sequence of, let's say, general theme observed by a variety of point of view. We have done this in 1947, and the theme was reconstruction after the Second World War. We have done it in 1992 about environment. The last 2 expo were, one was on the impact of human life on nature, and the last one was around during the COVID period, was more about the unknown. The title was Unknown Unknowns, and was extremely, let's say, contemporary in a way. So inequality is the issue we have, and I think that the way we are gathering also in this case different point of view is one of the best way to conceive the concept of multidisciplinarity. Because otherwise, and I agree with Kate, if we focus on different issues without creating connection and without making these different gaze capable to observe the same phenomenon, with the risk of, let's say, dispersion is big. Second issue, and I stop immediately, it's about cultural diplomacy. So I think that an institution like Triennale, a public institution like Triennale, should act as a subject also in geopolitical cultural diplomacy. And what we have done on Gaza, on the staircase, Agente Triennale has this kind of finality.
Thank you, Stefano. Kate.
Yeah, I profoundly believe in the importance of cultural institutions because, listen, we are bringing about paradigm change. We're trying to escape the ideas that shaped what we've inherited that doesn't work, right? The 20th century, with its major corporations, its extractivism, its mining, its drilling, its fossil fuel economy, its growth-centric, growth-obsessed and growth-addicted economy. It's so deeply embedded in the Western mindset, in the Western media, in politics, in our university education curricula. How do we escape it? How are we going to get around that? We need artists. We need culture and creativity. We need poetry and plays. We need to talk about bacteria. We need to be surprised. We need to see things that make us ask, why is it that way? Because then we can start to see with new eyes. So it's only going to be, I think, through cultural expression that helps us escape old metaphors and embrace new ones. For me, the foundational one is that we've got to escape the idea that the shape of progress is endless growth. Actually, it's thriving in balance. It's the dynamic balance that our bodies live in all the time, which keeps us alive, which is why we're all the same body temperature. This is the shape of health. It's the continual return to balance. So cultural institutions are going to play and do play such an important role in helping us just see that and sense that, helping us realize that we depend upon the bacteria. In fact, I'm made up of billions of bacteria. They're strongly agreeing with Stefano about their importance inside my body right now, to understand ourselves, to see the interconnectedness of everything. And that's why I earlier showed some pictures from the community groups. Even they're volunteers from the community, but they become cultural institutions because they start creating art and they do it playfully. And this is the last point I want to make. These are big changes and these are big crises we face, and they can be depressing and they can drag you down and they can make people say, this is too much. I'm going to switch off. I'm actually just going to go and watch TV. We don't want people to check out like that. We need people to stay engaged. So when you are presenting something that you are for, a positive proposition, right? Sometimes proposition can be the best form of protest. I'm not only going to tell you what I'm against, I'm going to show you what I'm for, and I'm going to prove to you it can be working in practice. And it's going to be a better party. You want to be there because it's fun, because it's creative, it's colorful, it's imaginative, and it's lit up my imagination. And I can now see things possible that I didn't see before. That is what cultural institutions bring. So for me, it makes all the difference. I personally realize all my life, I've been torn between being an economist and an artist. And at the best moments in my life, I've brought them together. And actually what I've started doing with Donut Economics is starting to do it as a circus, literally in a big top. I'm the ringmaster. I have a nice red top hat. And I've been bringing nature up on the stage and finance up on the stage and running it as a circus with lots of participation from the audience. In every room, there is somebody who can juggle, somebody who can do a funny acrobatic trick, somebody who wants to be a clown. And I bring them up on the stage and we make a circus together. This to me is bringing culture, humor, fun, energy into the greatest challenges of our time. And when we bring our humor, when we work and speak from there, sometimes we can say things and see things that otherwise feel a bit ruled out when we're sitting very smartly in a suit. So actually, I think the culture of bringing humor and awe and wonder is absolutely essential to this work. And so I'm so glad that this is happening in the context of the Triennale. Bring it on.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Kate. No more question. I would really thank you so much, Stefano. Triennale for hosting us here today, and you, Kate, for your wonderful contribution to this discussion. Thank you so much. Grazie a tutti e grazie a voi che siete rimasti qui fino a quest'ora. Grazie.